All right, welcome to Wholly Unapologetic. We've got a really special group call going on today. We're going to get to meet one new face for the podcast in particular, but a lot of friends coming back to the show. So starting off here, hello. Starting off with Ayce. How are you doing today, bud?
So good. Life is moving so fast in the right direction. And I'm collaborating with a ton of people, some of my best friends. So I'm so excited for the world to get to know these wonderful humans.
I love it. Thank you so much for bringing us so many wonderful new friends here to the podcast. Moving over to Kristin, thank you so much for being back on the podcast now for your third time. I feel like we should be like SNL and give you a special jacket at 5. Uh, so I know we'll get to hear some of your story again, some of your contribution to the book as we'll be talking about. But what's new and fresh on your heart and mind these days?
Thank you for having me back. I totally want a jacket. Yes, please. Um, what's new and fresh? Oh, this book is the culmination of so many years of hiding pieces of my story and letting it all come out. And so I feel really like, I think a word in our community we use is enervated, nervous and excited, joyful, turned on, anticipatory flutters. I'm delighted about that. And then I have several events coming up in Boulder and collaborations with Ayce and other colleagues. So it just feels like a delicious, like fresh runway for spring.
I love that. Beautiful description. Thank you so much for being back. So now moving over to Ephraim, thank you so much for being here with us. We got to be introduced to you in our second season, had a wonderful conversation about pleasure, coming back to ourselves. Thank you for being here. How are you doing today?
I'm so good. And, of course, everything's going to come back to talking about pleasure again. So, perspectives of the infinity of pleasure coming at you.
I love it. Thank you so much. And we are so excited to have Gigi with us as well. First time here for the podcast, but for those following Ayce and all of these other wonderful people, I'm sure she is not new to you. And so I wonder if Ephraim, would you introduce our new friend here?
Ah, this is Gigi, my beloved partner. We have been in the chaos and joy and craziness of unraveling relationship for several years now,
Lifetimes.
lifetimes beyond that. And our chapter in the book is all about those origins and deciding to really stay together when it is hard as fuck and the rewards that holds. And so I love being here with this wonderful human who I have and we have discovered so many impossible things together.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for being here. So, Gigi, do you want to tell us a little bit about your background?
Oh, sure. My background. I mean, I'm just a lover of love and all things ritual. I love sex, sexuality, eroticism, and so I'm just a little bundle of all of those things, and that's what I do in the world. So I help people love more and be in more pleasure, and I really love to help humans own their bodies and live without shame. And so pretty much everything I do has little threads into the weaving of radical self-acceptance and radical possibility.
That is beautiful. Thank you so much for that. And I love getting to hear a lot of these kind of similar themes too with our guests in terms of helping people. Something so simple like living in your body, right? Feeling safe in your body, living without shame. I think a lot of us have had to do a lot of unlearning and unpacking from our society at large, and of course from things like purity culture and other damaging structures. So I'm so grateful to meet wonderful people that are helping people heal. So with that, why don't we talk about the book? This is something we've kind of introduced in a couple different ways through the podcast. We had the wonderful Melissa Keenan on, who is of the Heart Open Publishing Enterprise, and this is a book coming out from there. So Embracing Your Eros, which is a multi-author volume that is going to be coming out very soon here. And we have many of the authors here with us today. So Ayce, do you want to introduce the book? Say anything else particular about it?
Actually, I would love for Ephraim and Gigi to introduce the book because they are the very first chapter, and I feel like it kind of sets the tone for the conversation. How does that sound?
It makes me laugh.
It feels really vulnerable to be the first chapter, to be really honest with you. Yeah, when we saw that, I was like, whoa! And whoa. So, one of my favorite things that I think all of the authors are doing is bringing their own personal definition of what Eros is. And so for us, Eros is this resonance of desire and connection. And for me, what I love about the book is just we get to have 25 different perspectives or lenses or views into this concept of Eros.
I'm as excited. We have not read each other's chapters. And so this book launch is the chance that I'm going to get to be able to read and be with every author and the passion and perspective that they're pouring onto the page. And it feels like Gigi she was in a chapter in another book that recently came out about High Priestess. And those chapters are so varied in their experience. And I expect the same, maybe even more in this. This is a vulnerable, gorgeous topic. And to be able to put out a book like this and open our souls right to the core, all 25 people, is a real treasure.
I think it's necessary medicine for the world to see different perspectives and to hear the stories of something that is not generally talked about. Like I feel really honored to be included, and I also feel vulnerable for all of us in this day and time that it's actually landing. It's such a necessary message in helping humans reclaim their wholeness in a time that I think it's really important that this message also be out into the world.
Absolutely. Such a good point. So for you two, what was the process like writing together? Obviously, you were in many ways partners in life together, but what was it like to work on this chapter? How did you decide what you were going to focus on? How was the collaboration like? I like to ask kind of the creativity questions.
So our chapter is kind of a back and forth conversation. And so in writing the chapter, we kind of landed on, okay, here's the gist of this part of the story that we want to tell. And then I kind of created an outline and a general first draft. And then Gigi goes in and she adds her perspective. Like this was the plan. So she would plant her perspective here and here and here and here. So you get to see it from both of our sides in our own unfolding. And they were very different and still similar unfoldings. And then it's also the story of how we came together and how we felt about it in each of our stories. And so sometimes it was chaos And it was, oh my God, are we actually going to put out this part of our story? I mean, really? No way. We're not going to do it. And then sometimes we would wrestle and come into conflict around it. And sometimes we would read it and go, oh yeah, this is the shit.
It was really reminiscent of our story. And Ephraim takes the lead because Ephraim is what I would consider more of the author or the human who expresses through words. And so there was a lot of guidance and like support and like, you can do this. Like, tell me about this. Why don't you just write about this today? Or, hey, there's some poking to provoke me. And so the pleasure of writing together felt very reminiscent of our whole story. And it's the first time we're actually sharing most of our story. And that feels it feels interesting. It's really wild to be in the fullness of the experience, but it was a lot of fun.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. Yes, I think whenever in doubt, it's better to be more vulnerable. And I know that's really hard, but as creative people and what we're putting out in the world, it's so important, especially with writing. It can feel so safe when you're just at the computer, and then the idea of sharing it can feel like two very different worlds. But I feel like I'm kind of on the right track if I'm like, ooh, I was really, really honest about that. But I'm also grateful for this podcast because I think sometimes it's almost easier to be very open here and versus sharing my writing personally. But anyways, thank you so much for that. Kristin, I want to come over to you. So how did this project come to you? What was your kind of first thoughts coming to this project? How did you kind of narrow down what you were going to focus on?
Well, this project came to me as an invitation. So it found me through my beloved friend Ayce, who said, I just met someone and I think your story has to be in this book. Wait till you meet this publisher. So I was actually a no for a couple months even, I think. And then I met Melissa. And so we've all had this incredible journey with Melissa Keenan, our publisher. And when I found out her background and her love of the sacred feminine and her walk out of purity culture and the fact that she's a beekeeper, I was like, okay, I'm going to look at this more deeply. And I already deeply respected Ayce, and we had this great synergy and background. But when I started seeing who else was saying yes, or like Gigi and E said yes, and then our friend Mallory said yes, and then these other leaders in the community were stepping in, I was like, I have to be in this room with these people. So it was really the community that brought me in and lit me up. Will you ask the second part of the question again, please?
Yeah, I guess I just was curious then about how you decide what you're going to write about. We have heard even just a small part of your incredible, incredible story. Was this your first time kind of formally writing it down in this way?
I have been published in 2 other formal, like on the shelves of Barnes & Noble and Costco books that were also anthologies, but I hid my last name.
Okay.
I put myself into the books. I actually wrote the stories and put myself in my stories in those books by invitation, but I didn't share my last name because I was still in hiding. I was still in this space of, well, I'll be frank, protecting the guilty.
Yeah.
And still wanting to be the peacemaker in my family and in my former groups that I had been a part of religiously, and still kind of walking out and into my own liberation. And so this is really me like claiming with my full name and heart the fullness of my erotic awakening. So I want to just add to what Ephraim and Gigi shared about the vulnerability of sharing these stories. And there's something powerful about inviting someone into the inside of our Eros. And that's what every single author is doing. We're opening up the inner temple of ourselves. And I was a birth doula for 10 years. I attended 500 births. That's really what started me on this path. And so I got to be on the inside of some of the most intimate hours of people's whole lifetimes, when a woman's in transition and stretched to the fullest and hitting her line and her edge, I was the one that was there holding that space. And I saw the inside of people's partnerships and their vulnerabilities. And that's exactly what I do through my work now, and what I've been doing in this intimacy coaching space for years. But this is almost like the tables are turned, and now I'm opening up the windows of my heart. People have been vulnerable with me with their private details for so long. And now this is me getting to open up too. And it's really, really precious. The story that I chose actually was the story I was the most afraid to tell, which was to actually share about healing through pleasure, not through hard work, and actually sharing things like, even as a survivor of a lot of assault and abuse and heartbreak and all the things, I have 27 kinds of orgasms. I see sacred geometry in my pleasure and travel through time and space. And those are things I've kept quiet because I work with people who have trouble orgasming or fear of being seen naked with the lights on for the first time. And so there's a part of me that feels guilty about experiencing so much pleasure in this body, having orgasmic experiences with food. And I just was like, you know what? Actually, people need to see the hope and the joy and what's possible. And so that's really what I open up through.
Wow, that is beautiful and so interesting too. I would imagine as a coach, you're used to catering all of kind of the advice to different people in individual situations. But when it's just you and the page, you just have to decide exactly which story you're going to focus on. That isn't exactly for those people and not exactly for these people too. And it's a difficult thing about writing, but you have to eventually just probably come back to something even more core and true and vulnerable. So thank you for your contribution there. I want to jump over to Ayce. What's so amazing about this, and clearly you've helped add more people to this group, is that there are a lot of course, shared experiences and shared elements of the healing journey, but also, of course, everyone's is completely unique too. How did you decide what you were going to focus on for your piece of this larger story?
Yeah, so what I found myself wanting to write about was my lived experience. And I kind of felt like it was me going first to give permission for other people to share their stories as well, right? Like I hear all these deep, intimate stories from my clients. But really, if I can go first and I can share some of those deeper longings, those pieces that the world never sees from anybody else, that gives them permission then to be able to share their stories and go into the healing journey themselves and create their own storyline and what that looks like for them. So that was a huge piece of why I chose to write in this book. Was there's 25 different people who have gone first. And this is a world where we actually need to hear these types of stories, the love, the eros. I mean, we're running into daily talks about war and hate and frustration and loneliness, right? And so I feel like this is a perfect time to dive in with something else and say, hey, there's another way. We don't have to get stuck in this mindset of this world is a big, dark, deep, black hole. We can live in pleasure and we can choose our own journeys. And within those tensions that we feel, like, how do we move in those spaces? How does our Eros want to come out and be alive in this world and actually create change? So that's what I'm so excited about, and why I'm so excited about this book coming out right now. I think it's the perfect time for the world to hear there's something else.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it certainly seems like fascism just tries to strip away everyone's color and everyone's uniqueness, and to actually still be fighting forward to feel and connect to our pleasure. It really seems like something that tries to be taken from us, and probably was for those of us that were raised in purity culture. It feels like it was taken from us and we're having to kind of scrape it back. But of course, it's also our own divine thing. But it is really hard, I think, in this world to come to the places that you all have arrived at and continue to kind of work towards. Is a really, really beautiful thing. So thank you for all that you do to inspire others to take part in this same kind of journey. It is still work in a way, although I don't want to use, Kristin, can you say your quote again about it's not necessarily hard work, but.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a quote exactly how to, because it comes out different every time, but really
Yeah,
this
so
thought
great.
of like, wow, what if it doesn't have to be hard, heavy, lifting, exhausting, leave you raw every time? What if every time you touch your body and someone else touches your body, every time you take a breath, It gets to be from presence and pleasure. And it gets to be joyful. What if?
What a crazy idea. I know we came to a lot of those great conclusions too with you, Ephraim. You had some wonderful descriptions of just how to find pleasure in all of these kind of day-to-day moments. So what's helping you out these days too, especially in a very stressful world, to kind of stay grounded and stay in your body?
One of my favorite things about me is that after so many years of playing with life as my lover, it's a habit to be with life as my lover. And don't worry, it doesn't take 20 years to do that. And wandering around the world, I find myself pausing at these beautiful moments. I find myself lingering with a bite of food. I find myself flirting with the people and the beings and nature in my life. And in the face of all the darkness, the habit of being in pleasure is ingrained enough that if I crash, I find my way back soon enough. And I know that if I go to self care, which is pleasure, which might be as easy as a breath or fucking Netflix and chill with myself, or and with Gigi, like Netflix saved our relationship. I don't know if we mentioned that in the chapter. That's kind of funny.
I think we did. Yeah, because it's one of your potential quotes. Anyway.
That beingness and consistently coming back to it allows it to be part of what I am. And all the things that I just mentioned is a way that everyone can develop that. It's easier than we think. Thank you, Kristin. It is fucking easier because we're already breathing and we're already eating and we're already drinking and we're already smelling flowers and we're already doing all the things that connect us to how to feel alive. And we can't let the darkness take that from us because it fucking tries and it weighs on our minds and on our bodies, and we want to fall into despair. And the real act of rebellion is fuck you, darkness. I will not be weighed down by you. I will claim my goddamn pleasure and I will keep it for myself and I will make it my habit. I will make it my essence and I will be alive and fucking love it. Yes.
Woo! Yes.
Yes.
I wish I had a
Amazing.
mic to drop.
Boom.
Highlight clip right there. Bookmark it. It's just interesting as you were talking about that, I was imagining a sort of toxic version of it growing up in Christianity, I think, which is this idea of like, they can't take our joy. We've got, joy through Jesus and things. But I think the way that they use it is much more avoidant. Just like, oh, I don't need to kind of know about how scary the world is because I can just kind of keep my head over here. But what we're talking about is so much more of really taking care of yourself first in a way, sort of like, I always love the quote that's like, if everyone swept in front of their own door, the whole world would be clean, And I think this is sort of like an emotional, physical version of that. So I love the way that you described it as self-care. I want to ask more about that too, because I feel like I went down a certain rabbit hole of like, okay, I need to exactly drink this much water and go to the gym for this amount of time and then get this much sleep. Like I managed to make self-care not fun, but I tried to do all the things and all the lists because that's kind of how my brain works. So what are some things that self-care looks like for you? And also, of course, anyone can answer this in ways that you find to really take care of yourself. And I'd also love to learn more about the Netflix side of things, that this could look different for everybody.
Okay. Oh, so much great stuff. And I definitely want to hear answers from other people. And I think when we get to that moment, and I imagine you can relate, is when we start hating our self-care, it's no longer self-care.
Right. It's a chore.
Yeah.
Right.
it
It
to
should be the
do.
first indicator.
Right. And it's interesting because we have a coach that basically she would talk about neutral or better. Neutral or better. I'm feeling good or I'm feeling better than that. And if you go below neutral, you have one job and it is self-care. Because if you're not in that space, then everything you do, you're going to hate. If you force yourself to clean the bathroom when you are in that space of blah, then you're just going to hate it more. And you're going to develop this habit of hating all the things that you're forcing yourself to do. And so self care for me is deeply following the impulse of what I want to do in that moment. So,
Mm.
in terms of Netflix, this is a great example. When Gigi and I, we've been in these relationship places where we just have fought all day. Like we'll fight, we'll separate for a minute, we come back together and we're in it again, and then we're in it again. And at the end of the day, we're exhausted and we really love each other and we want to love each other. And the only thing that we could do to come into connection was put ourselves in front of Netflix and maybe touch, sometimes like one finger,
It's my favorite way to cuddle.
favorite way to cuddle,
Mm.
and then be in there's energy and absorbed in something that doesn't require us to, put us in a place where we might start fighting again. And so Netflix, we could sit, we could be together, we could touch, and we were already in a place that was less than neutral, and the story would bring us up, and suddenly by the end, maybe we're leaning a little closer and we're happy to go to bed together. And it was the pathway, and still is sometimes, for us to actually come into resonance again.
Yeah, it's our way. It would be our way of co-regulating when we were so dysregulated. So it did save us.
It did save us. Go Netflix.
Well, and I think there's some shame there. So there used to be some shame there for me because we're in a culture of don't escape and Netflix is going to ruin your relationship because you'll be so lazy and you're not putting energy in and you need to move and you need to eat better and blah 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 blah. And that isn't true. That wasn't true for us. And as a matter of fact, like we do so much of the work that we do with myth and archetypal studies and studies of patterns actually in other people's stories. So there was so much enrichment and the ability to come back into coherence together. And so one thing that I love about this part of our story is to bust the myth that just because everyone else says it's not the right way doesn't fucking mean it might not be the right way for you. And so, yeah, Netflix fucking saved our relationship. And bam, thank you, Netflix. I'm here for it. And so if there anyone has shame around watching TV, like if it teaches you how to calm your nervous system or come back to neutral or come back to remembering why you're here, thank you for doing it. Well done.
I love that. And it makes sense that we don't want to spend every second just intellectualizing everything too, but to be actually present versus another kind of conversation or breakdown or something like that. It makes sense to just let yourself relax a little bit and whatever that looks like for you. Kristin, do you want to jump in here?
Sure. Yeah. I love that neutral or better. That's so great. I think the question was around self-care. Is that correct?
Yeah, for sure. What does that look like for you? And also, I think maybe even for some of us, how do you even start to listen to your body in that way? Because I think it took me and continues to be a hard thing for me to even. It's easier to think of something productive to do because I'm used to kind of feeling rewarded in that way to sort of actually be like, okay, what does my body want right now? It's not a signal I'm used to listening to. So what does that look like for
Yeah,
you?
got it. Okay. Well, that's actually part of my chapter. My chapter begins with the lightning bolt hair pull that awoke my frozen permafrost traumatized body and lit her up like the light of a million stars. And that, like, so for some people, healing is, I think this is one of my exact quotes, it's like it's a gentle spiral out. For other people, it's these stair steps and this long journey with plateaus along the way. My first awakening was a lightning bolt hair pull. It was like, whoo! There was a before and after that moment. And so I did start thawing fast because my body came online first. And so I think I had a different experience than a lot of people in that. I'd already tried the, 15 years of therapy and all the things. But it wasn't until my body woke up that I was like, oh, I can feel. And so then I started listening. Then I started going to the farmer's market and making out with the fruits and vegetables and realizing like, oh my goodness, the flower farm is like, whoa, I'd rather go there than the sex shop because, oh my goodness, the fragrance and the texture and the colors and the light. So I started following delight and joy. And I also started following the taboo. And I wanted to bring that as part of my awakening because my chapter is really about healing through consent in kink, in the BDSM world, learning where I ended and other people began, that I could ask for exactly what I wanted and even give a trauma trigger in advance. Please don't do X, Y, Z. Don't surprise me. I need to see you coming. I need to feel you before you touch me. Being able to communicate those things to someone who cared with a safe word and aftercare, like, oh my goodness. So those were some of my roots and pathways. But in terms of like what self-care looks like now, I guess I hadn't ever thought about like neutral to positive, but I have always had this kind of thought of like if you can't see the video, my arms are flat in front of me, straight across. This is like ground zero, bottom of the barrel. And this is, 90 degrees, firing on all cylinders. Where am I? And what do I need? Where am I mentally, emotionally, physically? And I'm a human who feels exquisitely. And sometimes I feel other people too. And so learning what is mine and what is theirs. And when it's mine, I move it. I take responsibility for my own experience. And sometimes I might ask my partner, will you please make me squirt so I can be a better human to be around? Could you help me out? Move some energy. But I also might go for a drive and listen to heavy metal. Like metal is one of the places that I move grief and rage. And I don't look like a metalhead right now until you see me at a show in my battle jacket. So realizing I don't fit in any boxes. I'm just as comfortable in a sound bath and just as orgasmic there as I actually can be in a heavy metal show where I lose myself in the music and all the emotion moves through me. And so music, movement, and orgasmic states have been my pathways for self-pleasure. And so also like kneeling every day is one of my places of deep regulation. I was raised to pray, 2 or 3 times a day and for every meal. And so the way that I found that really works for me as a devotional submissive, I'm also a very hardcore, amazing, fantastic dom. But in my personal life, being a submissive, like I kneel every day. And I spend time on my knees. And I do that before I meet with my clients. I get myself into a place of service and presence. And when I'm really pissed off, I listen to Babes Against the Machine. It helps.
I love that. I feel like the science is only just starting to catch up to what it sounds like is already known in our bodies, but that our bodies love ritual and actually doing different motions to get into a different headspace. So I want to get better about that. The other thing you reminded me of is there's this great book, Recapture the Rapture, which you might enjoy. But Jai actually mentioned it at the conference we were at. And just in terms of, those kinds of rituals and the things that can really excite us across all cultures is the music and things like that. But I love that farmer's market and flowers. Beautiful. Ayce, I want to give you a chance to jump in here too, wherever you'd like.
Yeah, so my journey was drastically different than the three of theirs. And so I had learned to repress all the negative emotions, the darkness, the things that were not allowed to be talked about. Um, I did not have a very big range in life.
Mm.
Neutral to positive, absolutely. But I couldn't go down and actually sit with the uncomfortable, sit with the pain, and actually allow that to move through my body. And so the beginning of my journey was actually going into the darkness, going into the things that I feared, dropping into that cavernous hole and realizing it wasn't actually cavernous at all. It was deep and it was dark and it was painful and it was ugly and it was horrible. I never would want anybody to have to go through it. And also, the more that I repressed that, the more pain that I actually was giving to my life. And so the beginning of my journey into Eros was actually finding safety in my body so that I could expand the range of what it was like to be human and allow those darker elements of my life to be a part that was no longer hidden or repressed, but embraced, and realizing that, like, I can do this. I can do the hard things. So I think that there's a piece of this, at least in my journey, where it was I struggled with chronic pain my entire life. I was repressing all these things and my body had no way to let it go. And I was like, that doesn't, I'm just going to put that away, not deal with it, whatever. And then I ended up paralyzed and I was like, well, fuck, I have to deal with this. And so I think that there's a piece of this as well of like, sometimes we have to dive into that fear that we have and allow the totality of the human experience to envelop us and allow it to be a part of our lives and allow it to move through us. The moment that I realized that the depression wasn't going to be my entire life, but that it was just this moment, this season that I had to go through, I was like, okay, I can take 6, 9, 12 months to go through this and really dive into the difficulties that I've been pushing away for so long. And then out of that, there was like an understanding of like, okay, I can move through the full spectrum of the human experience. This is part of what's being human. And so learning how to embrace that, learning how to move that through my body, finding pleasure in the pain, transmuting that all, that's always been a huge part of my journey.
So beautifully said. Thank you, Ayce. Yeah, I think probably some of the people that are suffering a lot right now emotionally in the world are ones that aren't wanting to face the discomfort of the reality and actually look into that darkness. And so I'm really glad you brought that up, because I feel like I'm also in a place in my life where the most honorable thing I can do is sit with my pain and my sadness and my grief and all these things that I was pushing down for so long, because we're not supposed to have those negative emotions. And so I think that's really important too. And like you said, it starts to open up that range of feeling as you come alive to yourself. So that's beautiful. I know those are some of the things that people can also be benefited from in coaching with you, Ayce, but I know you also have some other events and things coming up. Do you want to talk a little bit about what your horizon looks like and share that with our guests?
Yeah, so all of us have been collaborating with each other, and it has been so much fun because we all have very different personalities and skill sets and things that we bring to this world. And so I'm doing an event with Kristin coming up here, the Lord's House, which is all about religion and how we can find divinity within ourselves, and we can use that part of our story to really reclaim and rewire how we actually want to live in this world. Kristin, I don't know if you want to dive in a little bit about what we're doing, because I'm so excited about Carnival Dungeon, even Saints and Sinners.
The best way to spend Good Friday is in a carnival dungeon titled Sinners and Saints. I love heretical worship. I love taking things and turning them inside out, upside down, and seeing that they're actually truer on the other side. That's what we're doing at Carnival Dungeon, and that is what we're doing through the Lord's House. So I was raised, I'm just going to go, people, because I'm feeling the energy here. I was raised to believe that the church and the school and these people with special titles that presented themselves in this way of authority and holiness were safe. And in fact, that's where I found the predators. And that's where I found corruption of power. And in these places that look so scary, dungeons, BDSM, kink, heavy metal, oh my goodness. These are the places I have found to be the safest, the most celebratory, the most inclusive, and the most honest. Because people do their freaking work to be in those rooms, and they protect each other fiercely. And the first time that I saw, I showed up at my first heavy metal show with like a pink puff jacket and a Mrs. Claus outfit because I had no idea what I was showing up for. And I stood up on a picnic bench and looked down at these kids in this mosh pit, banging into each other, bouncing into each other. It looked like, I always thought people died in mosh pits. It was really violent and all these things. And I saw the elders holding the circle. And these kids moving energy through their bodies and helping each other up and bouncing joyfully and bashing each other. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is ritual. This is healing. This is shadow work with joy and celebration. Somebody falls, they all pick each other up. The oddballs are welcome. That's what the BDSM world is too. And that is my Sunday morning worship. Get on my knees, devotional blowjob. And deep throating life, what we used to call profane. I find the sacred there because it's honest, because it's consensual, and because it doesn't call anything impure or unholy. So that's what we're going to be doing Good Friday in Colorado. Ayce and I are helping facilitate an incredibly safe, sacred space for people to be able to taste and to see what therapeutic, safe, consensual touch looks like with experts, how to negotiate, and how to take the things that people are most afraid of accepting about themselves and be like, oh yeah, is that all you got? Bring it. More. I want to see more of you. That's what we're doing at this one night event. Ayce can say more about that, but it's very, very classy. It's by application only. It's truly a safe place to taste and see. Try it out. There are safe rooms to go to rest. You can just watch, but it's a beautiful place to experience different kinds of touch and different kinds of expressions of Eros, and playfully breaking rules that we had as children and getting to reclaim it. Be like, I'm a grown-ass adult. I get to do these things, and I get to do them consciously. How awesome is that? So I'll end with that, and then Ayce, maybe you can take up from there on the Lord's house itself.
Yeah, I'm just so excited about it because we're going to drop in for 3 weeks with people in a virtual group environment where we're going to talk about reclamation, liberation. How do we actually move forward in a joyful life and embracing some of the things that we were told were bad, wrong, broken, and sinful, right? And then what I'm so excited about is, Kristin, what you just talked about. Carnival Dungeon, April 3rd from 6 o'clock to 12. We're going to drop in with like 200 people, and we're going to go into a BDSM kink environment where we're able to express what's wanting to come out. So I'm very, very excited for Kristin to be flying out for this event. It's going to be good.
That's so awesome. We will, of course, link all the resources down below. So I want to jump back over to Gigi and Ephraim. Is there anything else you wish I had asked you about, whether it be the book or something else, or anything you'd want to share with our audience in terms of resources, upcoming, anything?
I was thinking about something, actually. I'm looking at my patterns of avoiding desire, work, whatever it might be. And I'm always thinking about how people can engage with life the way that I do, ecstatically. And the biggest resistance is in just starting. I want to promise you that it is closer than you think. It is pressing against your skin. And the resistance that you have to taking a breath that might be more pleasurable is the thing in your way. Just try it. Just experiment. Let it be exactly what it is. in that moment. You might take that breath and go, I don't feel anything. That's great. Do it again. Maybe right then, maybe a couple hours later, maybe a week later when you remember. And what I want to say is just start the experiment of living a life of pleasure. I think it's the most difficult hurdle that we have.
I'd like to add just like, I think that something that I see over and over and over that people come to Ephraim and I about is this idea of their idea of what pleasure is. Like sometimes people are like, oh, you must just be having orgies and fucking all the time. And that's all you do 24/7, just sex, 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 sex. And I mean, they're not wrong because what we believe is sex is existence. And so they're not wrong. And also, when you redefine pleasure to being cozy and comfortable and safe and having ease in your life, then there is so much more access to just step in. When you recognize that playing with your hair calms you down, or seeing your shoulder is something that just brings you so much more into your body so you can be present. Like these little ways is how you actually engage in having a pleasure-filled life. It is not always just fucking 24/7. And also, that's great if you have access to that and that's what you want. But pleasure is infinite if you give yourself permission to redefine what pleasure is.
Preach. Yeah.
Amazing. Anything else you would want to add, Kristin or Ayce?
I'm just like, what if pleasure is like the air you breathe and the water you swim in, and there's no end or beginning to it? I was just, as Gigi was just speaking, I was like thinking about my day yesterday and how pleasure and eros and devotion and kink wove through the entire day without a scene and without intercourse. And yet I feel full of pleasure, complete satisfaction, and yet without like feeling satiated or exhausted either. It's just this like feeling of completeness because this is something I get to be in all the time. And what if it didn't have to look like anything? What if we like broke this box of the thing we called sex, threw it away? What if it wasn't even real? What if it was being present in what's alive in this very moment and being able to like ride those waves all the time, knowing this one's for me? Yeah.
What I love about it too is that the people who might be repulsed by sex because of their trauma, upbringing, conditioning, whatever, you get to have pleasure too. It gets to look like however you are available and want it to look, which is completely fine if you're like, I don't want to touch anyone and I don't want anyone to touch me and I don't want to see any of that. Guess what? You are worthy of pleasure also in your life in any way that you will give yourself permission to have it.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I have this image of like breaking the sex box, like you were saying, Kristin. And it's like this gorgeous glass box that somehow when you break it, it doesn't necessarily hurt you. And you break it open and the treasure inside, like that you didn't even know was there. It's like, I thought I was just breaking this box and it was empty, but the treasure inside is just like this surprise that explodes you open for fucking ever. It's the thing that you will never forget. It just goes boom, and this knowing lands, and it's like, wow, everything is sex, and I'm doing
that.
it now.
That's what I've been feeling. I tell I remember years ago telling this beautiful Orthodox Jewish couple that I've been working with They were finally experiencing orgasmic pleasure and joy. And they were like, we didn't even know what was here. And it was like, where do you want to go now? And they're like, wait, there's more?
Yeah.
I'm like, yes, you've been playing with the bow on the wrapped box of the gift of sex, right? This book my mom used to have when I was a kid. And it's like, no, what if you just like, what if there's no box? Like there's no spoon in the Matrix? What if there's no freaking box? And what if all the treasures could not possibly be contained? And all we have to do is finally break the label that says it fits in this thing. And then we realize it's everywhere. Yes, that.
Yes, and being sex positive, like one of the things that I love to teach people is being sex positive means that like you don't have to have sex to be honored. Like
right.
that gets to be here too. I just really want to invite like every spectrum of pleasure and sexuality, including saying no, resting, not available for it, is welcome. Everyone is welcome.
So important. And sometimes I even tell people, like, please stop. Permission to stop, permission to pause, to rest, to reclaim your no, because your yes doesn't mean anything unless you have a no. I had to spend a lot of time in that as the one who was resting and as the one that was like very impatiently, terrifyingly waiting for my beloved at times. These are seasons. So yeah, this book is also for, and this work is also for people who are in the deep, deep freeze, in the deep pause. That is just as, if not more so, important and sacred.
Thank you so much for all that you do to help people through this healing process, and a really big heartfelt congratulations for what you're putting out into the world very soon. We'll of course link everything down below so people can come find you and find this book. So excited for all of you. Thank you so much for being here with us today and returning for many of you. And we'll catch up with everyone on the next episode of Wholly Unapologetic.